Welcome to tonight's sleep story. Let's drift into a soothing story together as you begin your journey into a restful and rejuvenating sleep. In the heart of the city, where the streets stretch wide and the buildings stand tall, there was once a humble street lamp that stood proudly at the corner of the most bustling road. It wasn't the tallest or the brightest, but it was a steady, reliable companion to the people who passed beneath its warm glow. For years, it had illuminated the path for countless travelers, its light flickering softly in the night, providing comfort to those who walked the streets in the dark hours. It had no grand purpose other than to serve, yet in its service, it had a profound impact on those who relied on it in the evenings when the city was cloaked in the blanket of night. The street lamp would shine with its warm golden light. It stood tall, proud of its task guiding lost souls, welcoming late-night wanderers and offering safety to those who crossed its path. People walked by it without a second thought, but to the street lamp, each of those steps was a testament to its importance, to its role in the rhythm of the city's life. It was part of the city, part of its heartbeat, and it knew it was needed. With each passing season, the street lamp grew a little older, its glow a little dimmer, but its duty remained the same. It never faltered, never hesitated, simply continuing its quiet service. The years passed in a blur. People came and went, seasons changed, and the city grew, but the street lamp stood firm, lighting the way. It had no ambition, no desire for recognition, only a quiet pride in fulfilling its role. It was content because in its simplicity it had found its purpose. But over time, change began to seep into the city. Newer, brighter street lamps started appearing along the streets. They were more efficient, more powerful, and they cast a stronger light. People began to notice them, marveling at their brilliance, their technological sophistication. Slowly, the once proud street lamp found itself fading into the background, no longer the focal point of the busy street, but just one of many. It had served its purpose, and now it was becoming an outdated relic of the past as the new lamps flickered. To life, the old street lamp began to feel the sting of irrelevance. It still tried to shine with the same dedication, but its light seemed weaker now, less noticed. People no longer took the same comfort in its glow. They passed by without a second glance, moving quickly beneath the newer lamps, attracted by their bright, efficient light. The street lamp's time had passed, and it knew it. Yet, even as its light dimmed, it continued to shine. It wasn't about being seen anymore. It was about fulfilling its purpose, no matter how small or unnoticed. As the city around it grew brighter, the old street lamp remained steadfast, quietly lighting the streets, even if no one took the time to appreciate it. And so it stood as the world continued to move on, its light flickering softly in the dark, a symbol of resilience and quiet dedication. It wasn't much, but to the street lamp, it was everything. The days stretched on, and as the seasons changed, so too did the pace of life in the city. The new street lamps, taller and brighter, began to dominate the streets, their sleek design and cutting-edge technology making them the preferred choice. The once proud, old street lamp was now a shadow of what it had been. The city had moved on, leaving behind the familiar glow that had once been a steady companion to so many. Though it still stood tall, it began to feel the weight of time pressing on its aging frame. The light it emitted was weaker now, flickering more frequently, and the steady hum of its glow was no longer as reassuring as it once had been. Each time the new lamps lit up, their bright, powerful beams cut through the darkness with such force that the old street lamp's soft warmth seemed almost like a distant memory, too faint to be noticed. The bustling streets moved past it, indifferent and unaware, as they followed the brilliance of the new lights. There were still moments when the old lamp caught the attention of a few passers-by, but these moments were fleeting. The city's rhythm had changed, and with it, the people. They no longer needed to stop and look up at the gentle light. They were too busy, too focused on the speed and efficiency of modern life to appreciate the quiet beauty of the lamps. Steady glow. It seemed to fade into the background, blending with the darkened corners of the city where its once important light no longer had a place. On one particularly cold evening, as the city hummed with activity, the old street lamp found itself dimming earlier than usual. A storm had passed through, and the air felt heavier, the chill settling deep into the bones of the city. The new lights were brilliant, their steady gleam cutting through the night, but the old street lamp stood alone in the corner, shrouded in the soft shadow of forgotten memories. Asterisk, the wind whipped through the streets, pushing the new lamps to flicker and sway, but they stood resolute. The old lamp, however, was no longer in its prime. The once proud glow had become an uneven flicker. It was still there, still trying, but the energy that had once fueled it was starting to fade. Its light wasn't enough anymore. It couldn't compete with the force of the new modern lamps. People no longer looked for it. It was as though it had been erased from their collective memory, relegated to the past. Even as it flickered weakly in the corner of the street, the old lamp didn't stop shining. It wasn't about being noticed anymore. It had long since abandoned the idea of recognition. It simply continued to do what it had always done, quietly illuminating the street, offering its soft light to those who might still pass by. The city had moved on, but the lamp, despite its fading strength, still held on to its sense of duty, as if it had not yet realized that its time had passed. But in the solitude of the night, the lamp began to question whether its light had ever really mattered. What had it all been for? Was there a purpose to simply shining in the dark, if no one was there to see? Yet, as the quiet of the city settled around it, the lamp couldn't help but feel a flicker of something deep inside. Perhaps it wasn't about the people seeing it. Perhaps its purpose was to simply be. Even in its last moments of light, the old street lamp held on to the one thing it had always known. It was here to serve, even if it no longer had an audience dot. And so, as the city continued to pulse with the bright, cold light of the new lamps, the old street lamp stood quietly fading, a small, persistent beacon in the dark. The wains picked up as night fell, swirling through the streets like a quiet roar. The city, bright with its new lights, was oblivious to the coming storm. The old street lamp, standing stoically in its forgotten corner, was more sensitive to the changes in the air. The light flickered as a gust of wind passed, and it shuddered. Slightly, its weakened frame unable to withstand the harsh weather for much longer. As the first droplets of rain fell, the storm grew fiercer, battering the streets with its relentless force. The new lamps, designed to resist such elements, stood tall and unyielding, their beams as strong as ever. They were untouched by the storm, their light casting sharp, clinical clarity across the pavement. But the old street lamp, battered by the wind and rain, felt each gust more sharply, each drop more painfully. It flickered in and out, its once constant glow now fragile, barely holding on. In the midst of the storm, the old street lamp felt a strange calm. It was not fear that it felt, nor sadness. It was simply acceptance. The winds howled around it, the rain pounded its fragile glass. But for the first time in many years, the lamp understood that this was its moment to fade. It had lived its life. It had served its purpose, but now was time to step back, to let the newer, brighter lights take over. It was a quiet realization, one without bitterness. The old street lamp had known, deep down, that its time had passed. The storm raged on, and as it did, the old lamp flickered more rapidly, the glow sputtering as if fighting against the elements. Its light grew dimmer, struggling to hold on. The city continued around it, indifferent to its struggle, as though it had already moved on, leaving the lamp behind. And yet, despite this, the old street lamp persisted, each flicker a small act of defiance against the storm. Even in its final moments, it refused to fade quietly. It would burn bright one last time, no matter how briefly, as the wind picked up. To a near scream, the old lamp gave one last flicker, its light sparkling briefly, a final burst of radiance against the darkened city. And then, with a final sigh, the light went out. Asterisk. For a moment, the city seemed to pause, as though holding its breath in recognition of the passing of an era, but no one noticed, not really. The new lights continued to shine, their brightness unaffected by the storm. The world moved on as it always did, but the old street lamp had done its part. Its light, though brief, had once guided people home. Its purpose, though now forgotten by most, had been fulfilled, and in its final silence, the lamp understood. It wasn't about how long it had been there, or whether it had been noticed. It was about the act of being there, of shining, even when no one could see. It had fulfilled its purpose, no matter how small, and in doing so, had left its mark in the world. The storm passed, the wind subsided, and the streets were once again bright with the new lights. But in the stillness of the night, the old street lamp's light, however brief, still lingered in the quiet corners of the city, where only the stars could see. The storm had passed, leaving behind a sky that was clear and still, that the city, bathed in the cold, clinical light of the new lamps, felt strangely empty. The bustling streets, once full of life and warmth, seemed to have lost some of their soul. The new lamps were efficient, their light bright and steady, but they lacked the warmth, the presence that had once defined the streets at night. People moved quickly beneath them, their faces lit up by the harsh, efficient glow, but their gazes seemed distant, detached, as though the street lamps had replaced something deeper, something more human. In the corner of the street, where the old street lamp had once stood, there was now only the darkened shadow of its absence. The ground where it had stood was still wet from the storm, and the faintest outlines of where its base had once been could be seen in the damp earth. But the space felt empty, not just because the lamp was gone, but because it had once occupied a small, essential part of the city's soul. And now, with it gone, there was a quietness that couldn't be filled by the modern lights, no matter how bright they were. As the days went by, the old street lamp's absence seemed to fade into the background, just another forgotten part of the city's ever-evolving landscape. New roadworks were underway, new buildings were rising up, and the city was constantly changing, always moving forward. People went about their days, paying no mind to the lamp that had once served them so faithfully. The city had moved on, and the lamp had become a mere footnote in the sprawling story of progress. Yet, in the quietest corners of the city, there was still a sense of something lost. It wasn't something anyone spoke about aloud. It wasn't something anyone could point to or put into words. But it was there, in the soft murmur of the wind and the flicker of a passing shadow. The old street lamp had been more than just a source of light. It had been a quiet companion to the city, a steady presence that had watched over countless lives. And even as it faded from memory, the mark it left on the world remained, quietly, imperceptibly. In the minds of those who had passed under its light, the old lamp lingered like a whisper, a faint memory of a time when things were slower, simpler. Perhaps they hadn't realized it at the time, but in its soft, steady glow, they had been given something more than just illumination. The lamp had offered them a quiet sense of comfort, of safety, of being seen in the darkness. And though it had been replaced by the bright, efficient lights that now dominated the streets, something of the old lamp's warmth remained in the hearts of those who had once relied on it. The city continued to move forward, as cities do, never pausing to mourn what has been lost. But the old street lamp, in its last moments of light, had quietly taught the city something invaluable, that it is not always the brightest or the most modern things that leave a lasting impact. Sometimes it is the quiet, steadfast presence, the unremarkable, unrecognized acts of service that leave the most enduring legacy. And in that quiet legacy, the lamp had found its true purpose, not in the brightness of its light, but in the quiet constancy of its service and the hearts it had touched, even if no one had ever noticed. Months passed, and the city continued to evolve, as cities do. The streets grew busier, the lights brighter, and the rhythm of life became more hurried, more focused. Yet, the memory of the old street lamp, though nearly forgotten by most, lingered like a soft echo in the hearts of the few. It wasn't something they spoke of openly, but when the night was quiet, when the hustle of the day slowed to a gentle hum, there was a certain fondness that crept into their hearts, a fondness for a time when things felt a little slower, a little simpler, a little warmer. Every now and then, Someone would walk past the corner where the old street lamp once stood, and for a fleeting moment, they would feel it, a brief, almost imperceptible pull at their heartstrings. The light that once bathed the street in its soft yellow glow was gone, but the warmth it had provided remained in their memories. It was as if the street lamp's quiet presence had imprinted itself onto the very fabric of the city, leaving behind an invisible trace of its light, a light that had once made the night feel less intimidating, less lonely dot in the quiet of their own lives. The people who had once walked beneath its glow began to understand that it was never about the light itself. It was about the comfort, the steadiness, and the small moments that had been shared beneath it. The street lamp had been there, quietly watching over them, providing light not just for their path, but for their spirits. It had been a small, unnoticed part of the city, yet in its absence, the city felt a little colder, a little less familiar. One evening, as the city hummed with the usual activity, a group of children were playing in the park nearby. Their laughter filled the air, their voices carrying across the streets as they ran and chased each other in the fading light of the evening. The sun had dipped behind the horizon, and the streetlights flickered on, their bright, efficient beams cutting through the dark. But among the bright lights, there was still a quiet softness to the night, a lingering sense of something gentle, something that couldn't be replaced by the modern glow of the new lamp's dot. As the children played, one of them paused for a moment, their gaze drifting to the corner of the street where the old lamp had once stood. The child's eyes lingered for a second longer than the others, and for a moment it seemed as though they could see it, the old lamp, standing quietly, casting its soft yellow glow over the street. The child smiled softly, a glimmer of recognition in their eyes before they ran off again, chasing their friends into the night. Asterisk, in that moment, it was clear. The old lamp, though no longer physically present, had left behind more than just a memory. It had left behind a feeling, a warmth, a sense of security, a light that was more than just illumination. It was a reminder that sometimes the smallest things, the quietest presences, leave the most lasting impressions. And so the city continued to bustle, moving forward with its modern lights and its relentless pace. But in the hearts of those who had once walked beneath the old street lamp, its glow remained soft and steady, like the light of a forgotten memory, always there, always warm, even in the darkest of times. The lamp had done its work, not just by lighting the streets, but by lighting something far deeper in the hearts of those who had once known it. Its legacy, quiet and enduring, continued to shine in the spaces where it had once stood, in the hearts of those who remembered the comfort of its glow dot. As the years passed, the city continued to evolve. Newer buildings rose, brighter lights flickered on, and the rhythms of life became faster, more hurried. Yet, as the city changed, a soft, unspoken connection to the past lingered in the corners, in the quiet spaces between the bustle of modern life. People moved through the streets, absorbed in their routines, but there was a subtle nostalgia in the air, a longing for something simpler, something that was now a distant memory. The old street lamp had long since been replaced by more efficient, Lights, its physical presence gone, but its essence remained, woven into the city's very fabric. And in the stillness of the night, when the wind whispered through the streets and the city slowed to a quiet hum, a few still remembered the old lamp. Some would pass by the corner where it once stood, and for just a moment they would stop, as if searching for something that wasn't there, something familiar yet elusive. In the shadows of the new lights, they would recall the warmth of the old lamp's glow, the quiet comfort it had offered during the dark hours. One evening, as the city wound down for the night, an elderly man found himself walking through the streets, his steps slow and measured, as though he were savoring the stillness of the night. He paused as he reached the corner where the old street lamp had once stood. The place was now bathed in the bright, sterile light of the new lamps, but for a moment, the man could almost see it, the old lamp, glowing softly in the darkness, its light a steady presence in the quiet of the city. He smiled to himself, a gentle, wistful smile, and for a moment, he was transported back in time. He remembered how, as a young man, he had walked these streets under the light of the old street lamp, feeling its warmth on his face as he passed. Beneath it, he had never thought much about the lamp back then. It was simply part of the world, a constant in the night. But now, as he stood there, he understood something deeper. The old street lamp had given more than just light. It had provided a sense of belonging, a quiet assurance that no matter how dark the night, there was always a steady, welcoming light ahead. And though that light was no longer there, its warmth still lingered in his memory, like the soft echo of a time long gone. With a sigh, the man turned and continued on his way, the memory of the old street lamp staying with him. He knew that the world had changed and that the city had moved on. But in that quiet moment, he understood that change wasn't always about progress or efficiency. It was about the things we leave behind, the small, unnoticed things that quietly shape our lives. The old lamp had been one of those things, and even though it was gone, its light continued to shine in the hearts of those who had known it as the man disappeared into the night. The city around him buzzed with life, unaware of the quiet moment that had just passed. But in the hearts of a few, the memory of the old street lamp remained, its light still glowing softly in the corners of their minds. It was a light that could never be replaced because it was never just about the brightness. It was about the quiet presence that had filled the streets with warmth and comfort, and the lasting impact it had on those who had walked beneath it. The city continued to move forward, but the old lamp's glow, though faint, remained forever in the hearts of those who had once felt its warmth. And in that, its legacy lived on, quiet and enduring, like a small flame that would never go out. One evening, as the first hints of autumn brushed the city streets, something unexpected happened. The familiar rhythm of the city seemed to shift, as if time itself had caught its breath. The usual bustle of people and traffic slowed for just a moment, a brief pause in the ever-moving tide. It was as though the city, so used to the modern glow of the new street lamps, was remembering something, a small, quiet part of its history that had been left behind in the heart of the city, where the old street lamp had once stood, a new light, appeared. It wasn't the harsh, bright glow of the new lamps, nor was it the cold, efficient light that had taken the place of the old. No, this light was different. It was soft, gentle, and warm, much like the one that had once illuminated the streets so many years ago. As it flickered to life, its light seemed to spread outwards, enveloping the surrounding street with a familiar, welcoming glow dot. It wasn't just a new lamp, it was a homage, a quiet tribute to the old one that had once stood here. The people passing by noticed it immediately. At first, it was just a passing glance, a flicker of recognition. But then, as they walked further, something shifted within them. The city's usual brightness no longer felt so cold, and the noise of the streets felt a little quieter, more distant. For just a moment, they felt something they hadn't noticed in a long time, a warmth, a sense of comfort, a sense that they were not alone. The new lamp, though clearly a modern addition, had an air of nostalgia about it. It was as if it had been placed there to fill the space the old lamp had once occupied, not just physically, but emotionally as well. People began to slow as they passed by, stopping for just a moment to gaze at the lamp, taking in its soft glow. Some even smiled, a quiet appreciation blooming in their chests, though they couldn't quite place why. The elderly man who had walked past the old street lamp many years ago happened to walk by this new light that evening. He stopped in his tracks, his heart momentarily still. He hadn't expected to feel it, the familiar pull of warmth, of connection, but there it was, like a faint echo of the past. He stepped closer, feeling the light on his face, just as he had when he was young. For a brief moment, he closed his eyes, letting the light wash over him, and in that moment, he understood something deep within himself. The city had changed, yes, but it hadn't forgotten. The quiet essence of the old lamp, the one that had offered more than just light but comfort, companionship, and warmth, still lived on. It had been replaced by something newer, something more efficient, but the spirit of it, the feeling it provided, had not been lost. In this new lamp, there was a quiet return to what had once been a reminder of the simple things that gave meaning to the ordinary moments in life. And so, the city continued to change around it, but for the first time in a long while, the man felt as if something had come full circle. The light had returned, not in the form of an old street lamp, but in a new way, carrying with it the memory of the past while stepping forward into the future. The city, though ever growing, had not forgotten the small things, the quiet moments, the warmth, and the light that had once filled its streets dot as the evening deepened. The new street lamp continued to shine softly in the quiet corner, its light glowing gently in the dark. The man stood for a moment longer, then continued on his way, the light at his back now a part of the fabric of his own story, a story that was still unfolding, just like the city around him. The warmth, the comfort, the quiet legacy of the old lamp had returned in its own quiet, enduring way. And in that light, he knew that the city would always hold space for what had been, for what had once been important. And that thought brought him peace as the seasons continued to shift. The new street lamp stood as a quiet presence in the corner of the city, its soft glow now a familiar sight. Though modern and efficient, it seemed to have inherited something from its predecessor, something intangible, but deeply felt. The people who walked beneath it, those who had once passed by the old, dim lamp, seemed to notice something different about this light. It was as if the streets, so full of the rush of life, had found a quieter pace, a more reflective rhythm in the subtle glow of this lamp. The city, always moving forward, began to slow down in unexpected ways. It wasn't that the world had stopped, but there was something about the way the light shone that made people pause, if only for a moment. The hurried pace of their footsteps softened, their conversations quieter, more thoughtful. People would often stop under the lamp, not for any particular reason, but to stand for a moment, feeling the warmth that emanated from it, remembering the city that had once been, remembering the older version of themselves they'd left behind. Asterisk one evening. As dusk settled over the city, a young woman found herself walking down the same street. She had recently moved to the city, seeking the opportunities it promised, eager to carve out her place in the world. She'd passed this corner many times before, but tonight something drew her in. The light from the new street lamp caught her attention, and for a brief moment she stopped, transfixed by its soft glow. She'd never quite noticed how comforting it was, how much it seemed to embody something warm and familiar. Even though it was a new addition to the city, she found herself standing there longer than she expected, almost as if waiting for something to happen. The wind had calmed, the noise of the city softened, and there was a quiet peace that she couldn't explain. In that moment, she felt as though the light was somehow holding her, cradling her in a way that she didn't even know she needed. For the first time since moving to the city, she felt a sense of belonging, not because she had found her place, but because she had stopped to recognize that she was part of something larger, something that stretched beyond herself. Across the street, an older man, much like the one from earlier, paused as he saw the young woman standing beneath the lamp. He smiled softly to himself. He had seen it before, the way the city's lights seemed to reflect something deeper in the people who walked beneath them. It was not the bright, efficient lights that caught the soul, but the soft, steady glow of something that felt enduring, something that carried the weight of time. The older man had walked these streets for years, and though the city had grown and changed around him, he had learned to find comfort in the small moments, in the quiet spaces where time seemed to slow. The new light, though different from the old, still held something familiar in it, a quiet, steady warmth that made people stop, reflect, and breathe for just a moment longer. He knew it wasn't the light that made the difference. It was the space it created, the pause it invited. The young woman, still standing there, felt something shift inside her. She didn't know exactly what it was, but she could sense a kind of peace settling in her chest, a peace that had been missing since she arrived in the city. It wasn't the future she had imagined for herself, but in this small, quiet moment, she felt as though she had found something simple, yet significant. something she could carry with her as she continued on her journey. As she walked away from the corner, the soft glow of the street lamp remained in her mind. It wasn't just a street light, it was a quiet companion, one that illuminated not just the path in front of her, but the deeper, quieter spaces within herself that she had neglected. The light felt like a part of her, a part of the city, a part of the unspoken connection between people, places, and moments. The city around her, vibrant and alive, still moved forward, but tonight she was able to step back, take a breath, and feel like she belonged. In the distance, the lamp continued to glow, its light soft but steady, quietly filling the streets with warmth, just as it had done for so many before. The city may have moved on, but the light from the old lamp and the quiet love it had once offered remained in every new glow that followed. The legacy of the old street lamp lived on in every soft flicker of light, in every quiet moment of connection, in every pause that allowed the heart to breathe. As the days turned into weeks, the city around the old street lamp's corner continued its inevitable transformation. New shops opened, new faces passed through the streets, and the once quiet, dim corner became more vibrant and bustling. Yet, the glow of the street lamp, though new and modern, continued to hold something familiar. It was a symbol not of the past, but of the quiet continuity that persisted amid the change. The people who passed by began to notice it more frequently, stopping in its soft light for just a moment longer than before. Some would pause in their rush, resting for a brief second as if the light had a calming effect on them. Others would stand for a little while, lost in thought, caught by the simplicity and serenity the light seemed to offer. And in those moments, something unspoken passed between them. The city was still changing, but there was a quiet understanding that some things, though not perfect, were worthy of remembering, of cherishing. On one particular evening, as the first soft glow of dusk touched the sky, a young man stopped by the street lamp after a long day's work. He was new to the city, having arrived only a few months earlier, eager to start fresh but uncertain about where he belonged. The fast pace of the city had overwhelmed him at times, and the bright lights of the busy streets often felt too cold, too impersonal. But tonight, as he walked down the familiar street, something about the soft glow of this lamp caught his eye. It wasn't the brightest, but it was steady and warm. It didn't command attention like the modern lights, but it invited a moment of peace. He stood beneath the lamp for a while, feeling the light wash over him, warm and gentle against the evening's cool air. In that moment, he wasn't thinking about the pressures of his new job or the noise of the city around him. There was only the quiet presence of the light, offering comfort without expectation. It reminded him of the quiet simplicity he had left behind back home, the warmth of small moments, of soft evenings, of stillness. The young man's eyes lingered on the lamp for a long while. He couldn't explain it, but standing beneath it, he felt a subtle shift within himself. He had spent so much time rushing to find his place, to find his purpose in the city. But here, beneath this quiet glow, He understood something simple. He didn't have to search for belonging in the fast pace of the world. Belonging wasn't something to be chased. It was something to be experienced in the moments when he allowed himself to simply be present, to notice the quiet things that passed unnoticed. As he stood there, he noticed a few others had paused. Near the lamp, some passing by, others who, like him, simply found themselves caught in the soft warmth it provided. There was something comforting in the shared silence. No words were exchanged, but it felt as though there was a quiet agreement among those who stood beneath it. The world didn't need to be rushed. There was time for the stillness, for the peace that could be found in the simple act of being. The young man took a deep breath, letting the cool air fill his lungs, and as he exhaled, a wave of calm washed over him. He had been searching for a sense of belonging, for a place in the bustling city, but now he realized it was not a place he had to find. It was within him, found in moments like this one. It was in the quiet connection to the world around him, in the acceptance of where he was, just as he was. With a smile, he slowly turned away, but the glow of the street lamp remained in his mind, soft and constant, a quiet companion to the journey ahead. As he continued on his way, he felt lighter, more at peace with himself and the world. The city, though bustling with life, no longer seemed like a place that overwhelmed him. It was simply a part of the flow of life, and he too was a part of it. The lamp continued to shine in the background, steady and unwavering, its quiet light a symbol of the small moments that make life worth living, the moments of stillness, of peace, of connection that can so often be overlooked in the rush of the modern world. The city may have moved on, but the light that lingered in its corners remained, just as it always had, steady and constant, offering comfort to those who needed it most. And so the young man walked on, no longer searching, but simply living, knowing that he was not alone, and that in the quiet glow of the world, there was always space to find peace. Time continued its quiet march forward, and as the seasons shifted once again, the city carried on its rhythm. The streets grew busier as the days grew longer, the once quiet corners now brimming with life. Yet the soft glow of the street lamp remained unchanged, a steady presence amidst the hustle. It no longer drew the same crowd it once had, yet its light still held the same warmth for those who paused to notice. The city, vibrant and modern, often rushed past it, eyes fixed on the bright lights that guided them forward with efficiency. But for those who took the time to look, the lamp's quiet light seemed to offer something more, a reminder that not everything in life needed to be fast or urgent. Sometimes the best moments were those that were slow, those that allowed space for reflection and stillness. As the evening settled in, the city's pace began to slow. The noise of the day softened, and the lights flickered on, painting the streets in varying shades of brightness. Among them, the old street lamp remained, its light a gentle companion to the darkening night. It cast a soft circle of warmth on the cobblestone path, inviting those who passed by to linger, even if just for a moment. And though few took notice, the ones who did felt the subtle embrace it offered. One evening, A woman walking home from work found herself drawn to the lamp. She had passed this corner countless times before, always rushing, head down, focused on the next task. But tonight, something about the lamp's glow made her stop. Perhaps it was the way it cut through the evening's chill with a warmth that felt welcoming, or perhaps it was simply the quiet invitation to pause. She stood for a while, letting the soft light bathe her face, feeling the tension of her busy day slowly ease away. The street was quieter than usual, the hum of the city distant in the background. There was a peace to the evening, a stillness that seemed to wrap itself around her as she stood under the light. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't thinking about the tasks that awaited her at home or the deadlines that loomed ahead. Instead, she simply existed, allowing herself to be present in this moment. Under the glow of the lamp dot, as she looked around, she noticed that no one else had stopped. The streets were empty except for her. For a moment, she wondered if it was always like this quiet beauty that went unnoticed in the rush of the world. But as quickly as the thought appeared, she pushed it aside. It didn't matter if others noticed or not. This moment, the quiet peace beneath the lamp, was hers to savor. And it was enough. She smiled softly to herself, feeling a sense of calm. She hadn't realized she'd been missing. The busy city had a way of pulling people along, of making them rush from one moment to the next. But here, beneath the quiet light, there was no rush. There was only stillness, only the soft glow that had been there, steady and constant. Through all the changes of time dot as she continued on her way, the lamp's light remained in her mind. It was a quiet companion on her walk, reminding her that amidst the rush and noise, there was always space for peace, space for pause. The lamp, though small and often overlooked, had given her something invaluable in that moment space to breathe. To be, to simply exist. Asterisk, the city moved around her, but she no longer felt as if she was moving in isolation. The rhythm of life, the pace of the world, no longer felt so overwhelming. In the stillness of the night, under the quiet glow of the street lamp, she had found a moment of connection, not to the world around her, but to herself. The light may have been small, but it had shone brightly in her heart, reminding her that even in a busy, chaotic world, there was always room for stillness, for peace, and for a quiet, enduring glow that could always be found if only one took the time to notice. And as she turned the corner and disappeared into the night, the street lamp remained where it had always been, casting its soft light on the street. It was no longer the centerpiece of the city, no longer the focus of attention, but it still had a place, a purpose, a quiet, unassuming presence that continued to offer warmth to anyone who took the time to stop and appreciate it. Its light would never burn brightly in the way the newer lamps did, but it didn't need to. It was enough to simply shine in the quiet, in the moments when its glow was needed the most. Dot in the stillness, the lamp's light remained a quiet reminder that some things never truly fade. Asterisk, as the days drifted into months, the city continued to evolve, as cities do. The skyline grew taller, the streets busier, the lights brighter, but the old street lamp remained, its glow soft and steady in the midst of the modernity surrounding it. It wasn't the brightest on the street, nor the most powerful, but it had something the others lacked, something simple and enduring that no amount of new technology could replace. The city's pace had quickened, the streets alive with the energy of constant movement, and yet there was something about the old lamp's quiet presence that felt like a subtle anchor, holding the city in place just for a moment, inviting people to pause. It had become less of a destination and more of a fleeting comfort, an oasis in the rush of life. Those who noticed it found themselves stopping, even if just for a second, to feel the quiet warmth it offered. It wasn't a need for the light itself, but for the brief reprieve it provided from the noise and movement of the city. One evening, as the sun set behind the tall buildings, casting long shadows across the pavement, a middle-aged woman found herself standing in the same spot as she had months ago. She had just finished a busy day at work, her mind buzzing with all the things she had to do, all the things she had yet to accomplish. The weight of her responsibilities pressed down on her, and the noise of the world felt overwhelming. But when she reached the corner, she stopped. She didn't know why, but something about the soft glow of the old street lamp caught her attention. She stood there for a moment, staring at the light, the warmth it cast on the pavement below, and she realized, almost with surprise, that she felt calm. The city continued around her, people rushing past, cars moving quickly along the streets. But for a moment, all of that faded into the background, and all she could focus on was the quiet, steady glow of the lamp. She closed her eyes for a second, inhaling deeply, and in that breath, she felt a wave of relief wash over her. It wasn't the relief that came from getting something done or from meeting a deadline. It was the relief of simply being, of letting go, even for a moment, of the pressure to be somewhere or do something. She wasn't lost in the rush anymore. For that brief moment, the city was still, and she was just part of it, like the lamp, steady and an unhurried dot as she stood. There, she began to notice something that she hadn't before, the way the shadows stretched across the pavement, the way the light seemed to soften the sharp edges of the buildings around her. There was something comforting about the simplicity of the lamp's light, the way it just existed without demanding attention, the way it filled the space around it with gentle, unassuming warmth. It reminded her of the things she had almost forgotten, the small moments of peace, the quiet that lived within her, even when the world felt chaotic. The old street lamp had always been there, never asking for recognition, never competing with the newer, brighter lights that now filled the city. But in its quiet, it had become something special, something necessary in a world that often felt too fast, too loud. She smiled softly to herself, taking one last look at the lamp before turning to continue her walk. It wasn't about the lamp itself, she realized. It was what it represented. The stillness, the quiet, the moments that could be found in the middle of the busy streets, if only one stopped long enough to notice them. As she walked away, she carried that warmth with her. It was a quiet gift that had been given to her in the midst of the noise, a reminder that she too was allowed to pause, to breathe, to just be. And as she walked further down the street, the old street lamp remained in the background, its light steady and unwavering, filling the world with a quiet presence that would never demand attention, but would always be there when someone needed it most. It may not have been the brightest, but it was enough. In its quiet glow, the lamp continued to offer what the city could not: peace. And for that, it would always be remembered. The city moved on as it always did, but the quiet legacy of the old street lamp remained, a soft, enduring light in the shadows. A reminder that some things, though not always seen, are never truly forgotten. As the city around the old street lamp continued to change, the passage of time seemed to settle more gently into the rhythm of life. The streets, once vibrant with the rush of modernity, had begun to feel a little slower, more reflective, as if the city was allowing itself brief moments of pause amid its constant motion. New developments flourished, new buildings rose from the earth like monuments to progress, but the soft, familiar glow of the old street lamp remained, embedded in the hearts of those who had once stood under it. The lamp was no longer the center of attention, nor did it need to be. Its light was no longer needed to guide the hurried footsteps of the city's passers-by, nor was it the bright beacon of security it had once been. Yet, as the world around it moved forward, there was something about its steady, unwavering presence that had quietly lingered in the memory of those who had known it. It became a silent, cherished part of the city's soul, its glow woven into the fabric of the past. Ever present, though unseen by many, one late autumn evening, an older man, his hair touched with silver, wandered down the familiar streets. He had walked many years ago. He had moved away from the city for a time, seeking new horizons, new opportunities, but the pull of the past had never fully released him. As he returned for a visit, memories flooded him, bringing with them a deep sense of nostalgia and warmth. He passed familiar shops, remembered corners, and as he approached the old part of town, where the streets seemed to hold more of the city's history than its future, his steps slowed. He found himself standing in front of the spot where the old street lamp had once stood. His eyes searched the familiar space, half expecting to see the old lamp flickering warmly in the dark, as it had all those years ago. But instead, there was only the steady, efficient glow of the modern lamps, their light cutting sharply through the night. Yet there was something still there, something intangible. The old man stood for a long while, his gaze drifting toward the spot where the street lamp had once illuminated the night. He closed his eyes for a moment, and in his mind's eye, he could see it, the lamp's soft light, its steady glow welcoming him home after long nights, guiding his way when the streets felt too dark, too empty. He could almost hear the hum of its light, the gentle sound of life unfolding beneath it. It was a memory, but it felt real, like the soft warmth of the lamp still lived in the corners of his heart. A smile tugged at the corners of his lips. He remembered how, when he was younger, he'd never thought much of the lamp. It was just there, like the air around him, a part of the landscape he didn't think to question. But now, in this quiet moment of reflection, he realized how much that little lamp had meant. It had been more than just a source of light. It had been a quiet companion in the night, a symbol of stability and comfort in a city that was constantly changing. He stood there, letting the memory wash over him. The city had changed, the lamp had gone, but in his heart, the light remained. It was not the light of a street lamp, but the light of gratitude, of quiet acknowledgement for the small things that made life beautiful. He didn't need the lamp to be there physically. He had carried its warmth with him all these years, and it would remain with him, just as it had been before, the quiet, steady light that had guided him through so many dark nights. With a final look at the space where the lamp once stood, the man turned and walked away. His pace was slow, reflective. The city around him had grown, but in his heart, there was a quiet peace, a peace that came not from the brightness of the new lights, but from the soft, enduring glow of memory. The old street lamp was gone, but its legacy had quietly endured, woven into the very spirit of the city. And in the hearts of those who had known it, its light continued to shine, steady and constant. A reminder that some things, though forgotten by many, never truly fade. Asterisk as. The years unfolded, the city around the old street lamp grew ever more dynamic. The streets filled with the pulse of modern life, and the skyline reached new heights, framed by glass and steel. The relentless hum of progress carried on, and with it, the relentless pace of change. But amidst the whirlwind of newness, the old lamp's absence lingered in the quiet corners of the city, not as a physical presence, but as a quiet echo in the background of the everyday. It became less of a memory and more of a quiet symbol, something people recalled in passing, in fleeting moments, like a familiar tune they once heard often but hadn't played in a long time. In the quiet streets, where the newer, more powerful lamps cast their harsh glow, there were still moments when someone would pause, standing for just a heartbeat longer beneath the modern lights. The old lamp had been a quiet guide in their lives, a steady companion during cold nights, a reminder of home during late walks. It wasn't that the new lights were not enough. They were efficient, bright, and did their job. But the older light, the old lamp, had offered something more. It had been a source of comfort in its simplicity, a constant amidst the chaos. One evening, as the city began to quiet for the night, a young woman found herself walking down a street she had passed countless times before. She had grown up here in this city of ever-changing faces and places. She had moved away for a while, seeking her path in distant lands, but now, back for a visit, she found herself walking these familiar streets once again. Her footsteps echoed softly as she walked beneath the new lights, their efficient, modern glow casting sharp shadows on the sidewalk. She had always noticed how bright they were, how they made the night feel sharper, more defined. But tonight, something felt different. There was a quiet longing in the air, a soft yearning for something that had once been. As she walked past the old corner, she slowed her steps, her gaze drifting to the spot where the old street lamp had once stood. The space was now bathed in the bright lights of the new lamps, but her heart caught in her chest. She stood for a long moment, as if waiting for something. She didn't know exactly what she was waiting for, perhaps a flicker of the old light, a reminder of the soft glow that had once guided her home during long walks through the city. And that moment, she remembered the night she had spent walking these streets, as a child, as a teenager, with the old lamp softly lighting her way. She remembered the comfort it had provided, not just by its light, but by its presence. It had been a part of the fabric of her life, like the quiet hum of the city, always there, never demanding attention, but always offering its soft, constant glow. The thought of it, now gone, left her with a strange sense of nostalgia, of something lost. Yet there was no bitterness, no sadness. Instead, there was a quiet gratitude for what had been, for what the lamp had once represented. She stepped closer to the spot where the lamp had stood, and for a brief moment she felt as though the light was still there, not in any tangible form, but in the memory of the comfort it had offered her and the others who had passed beneath it. The city had changed, and the lamp was gone, but its light had not been forgotten. It still lived in the quiet moments when people stopped to think, when they paused and allowed themselves to remember the small, quiet things that had once made life feel simple and safe. With a soft smile, she turned and continued her walk down the street, the city's modern lights still glowing brightly above her, but the old lamp's quiet presence lingered in her heart, like a quiet ember that continued to glow long after the fire had died. The city had moved on, but in its soul, there was still room for the old light, the light that had once been steady, constant and warmed out, and in the quiet moments, in the spaces between the noise, the old lamp would always be there, shining in the hearts of those who remembered its light. The days continued to pass, as they always do, and the city moved forward, its streets teeming with the pulse of modern life. The new lamps remained steadfast, efficient, their lights bright and sharp, casting long shadows on the pavement. Yet in the hearts of those who had known the old street lamp, there was an unspoken warmth that remained. It was a warmth not found in the efficiency of the new lights, but in the quiet legacy the old lamp had left behind. One quiet evening, as autumn brushed the air with a chill, a group of friends gathered in the park, their laughter rising and falling like music in the crisp air. As they sat on a bench beneath the wide branches of a tree, one of them turned to the others, a faraway look in her eyes. "Do you ever think about the old street lamp?" she asked softly, her voice barely rising above the hum of the city. Question seemed to hang in the air for a moment, a pause in the busy rhythm of their conversation. The others looked at her, a slight frown knitting their brows, as if they had forgotten it too. But then the memories stirred, like a forgotten tune remembered in the quiet of the night. "I do," another friend replied, smiling softly. "I remember it as a kid. It always felt like something steady, something safe. I didn't realize how much I missed it until it was gone," said a third, their voice quieter now, tinged with nostalgia. "It was never the brightest, but it had this comfort, you know? The light wasn't harsh, and you always knew it would be there, night after night." The conversation drifted to other topics, as it often does, but the warmth of their words lingered in the air, a quiet reflection on the subtle power of the old lamp. Though it had been replaced by something newer, something more efficient, its presence in their memories remained steady, as if the light it had cast still warmed them. In ways they couldn't fully express as the night wore on and the park grew quieter. They stood up to leave, walking toward the familiar streets. The new lights bathed the city in their bright glow, their efficiency cutting through the dark, but the old lamp, though gone, had left a lasting imprint on their hearts. It had been more than just a fixture in the city. It had been a quiet companion, offering something that no modern light could replicate: the warmth of being seen in the dark, the quiet comfort of knowing that something would always be there, steadfast and true. The city continued to hum with the rhythms of life, its streets filled with people and noise. The modern lamps would continue to shine brightly, guiding people through the nights with their steady glow. But in the background, in the quiet corners of the city, the legacy of the old street lamp lived on. It wasn't in the brightness of the new lights, nor in the bustling crowds of people, but in the hearts of those who remembered. It was a legacy of warmth, of quiet constancy, of simple light that had shone through many nights long after it had been replaced. And so the city moved forward, but the light of the old street lamp, though dimmed, still lingered like a soft echo in the night, ever present, quietly shining in the memories of those who had once stood beneath it.